everybody. Welcome to Talk of the Trades. I'm not even going to act like I know what episode it is anymore, so Bianca, help us out. Appreciate it. Joined by Aaron Waters. What's up, Aaron? How are you, sir?
Howdy. I'm really frustrated. I've been saying howdy a lot lately, so I need to change that up.
Okay. You went to a country concert not too long ago. Is that what kicked it in?
I think so. It's just the social awkwardness, but yeah,
Okay.
Shane Smith and the Saints. It's great.
Nice. Yeah, I'd never heard them until you told me, so I don't know how I should feel about that.
Did you listen to the song I sent you?
Yes.
Honest?
That was the only one. And then I clicked his artist bio and I'm like, yeah, I've never heard of this guy.
No.
So,
Okay.
but well, howdy.
Howdy. How do you do?
Howdy from Texas. So cool. We got some good topics lined up today. So we're going to talk about a little Pantheon review. So we just sent 8 folks out there to Anaheim. Check that out. That was a good time. We'll talk about the Google Search Console shakeup. A lot of lost traffic. GBP suspension seems like it's hot. I know we saw some stuff popping up on forums, Twitter, all that stuff. And then, the client question of the week, new segment.
Oh.
How do I show up in LLM search results? You weren't ready for that.
Thank you, client. Yeah, I didn't know it was a segment. I like it.
Hey, it's our first official segment. Bianca, mark that one down. If we have some time, we'll talk through the TikTok acquisition, potentially, and some Reddit marketing strategies. Maybe talk about some things that we got going on here at Leadhub that we're excited about as well. So, yeah, let's jump into it. Pantheon, dude. So, we like to do this thing called Rose and Thorn, kind of the peak and the pit type of deal. And so, obviously, I was there and you weren't.
Yeah.
So I'll share my perspective. And we'll probably have some more stuff coming out from the team. But in terms of Rose, me, I'm a social guy. So hanging out with the clients for sure was a good time. So got to hang out with our Connecticut clients from Phoenix, and that was a really good time. Saw some other clients as well. So always good networking opportunity for sure. And I think for me, at least, that's the most value in some of these conferences, because I think some years they're hit or miss. Pantheon, I heard a rumor, I can't remember where I heard this, but they spent upwards of $7 million just on Pantheon.
Yeah.
So they had Peter Attia and Andrew Huberman there this year. And then I think Little Big Town was the musical act, if I remember correctly. Is that Lil Nas X? I don't know. That Old Town Road is definitely Lil Nas X.
Bianca, can you cut that, please? I'm showing my age.
I can't even think of one of their songs, so all good. So I think, Rose 1A is definitely the client stuff. 1B, though, if we're talking about things that Service Titan rolled out, I'm going to have to go with their new kind of persona. I don't know what you would call it, but it's Atlas is what they're calling it. So basically, think about ChatGPT built into your Service Titan account.
Yeah.
So what was really cool about that is not only some of the generative stuff it can do, in terms of telling you what's going on with the data. I think some of the agentic AI that's going to happen in there in terms of it automatically ordering parts. So one of the examples they gave that was really cool was they showed a tech out in the field and him, taking, I think it was pictures with his phone, or he was wearing those glasses or whatever. But nonetheless, he was able to take video and photos, share it with Atlas, and it was able to help diagnose that sort of stuff. So the integration there is going to be pretty insane, I think, overall.
Well, yeah, I remember we had a client that we were doing their HVAC stuff. They had a whole different model, but they had helmets like that. This was 8 years ago.
Okay.
That had a lens or a camera, and it was supposed to be that if you had a technical issue, it was more for commercial and military, construction.
Okay.
And then you could call back to the call center. So interesting to see that then come into almost, just the AI side of it. So,
yeah.
Very cool.
It's what interests me about that and this whole AI thing is what is it going to do for the skill set that's needed for that type of technician? If you're able to diagnose with Atlas or a large language model, what does that look like for the type of skills you need, and kind of how is that going to influence? Because I know within our organization, we talk about how maybe we don't need to write as much anymore. We just need to understand how to get AI to write for us, in our voice and those types of things. So what are your thoughts on like how AI might impact like the type of skills you might need, or who you'll hire, in the future?
Yeah, I mean, I think that there will be a drive towards hiring either entry level or not as talented individuals, but then you're going to find critical thinking is still something that is absolutely required, and having somebody ask the right questions. You can't really replace talent that has experience. So
Right.
I do think that the workforce will get younger, but I also think the training is going to get better. And so it's scary, but also very interesting seeing where it's going. But like when we talk about it from a marketing side, when all the content sounds the same, how do you differentiate?
Right.
And AI can differentiate, but you have to have somebody critically pushing in that direction. So
Yeah.
I think from a training standpoint, you still need the skilled labor. I think those positions are gonna stay for quite a while.
Yeah.
But are they gonna be more efficient? Probably.
Yeah, I think definitely it's gonna make folks more efficient for sure, but also, how are we gonna have to, like, what level of communication skills do we need to have with AI? And what I'm saying is like prompt engineering kind of thing, right? Because I think anybody can say, hey, like, what is this, right? But if you say something more detailed, like, hey, what is this? I've measured its temperature, it's 69 degrees compared to other components, and blah, blah, I don't know, but that's like what I think about. It's like, you're going to have to understand how to communicate with these tools. And like, if you have that subject matter expertise already, coupled with the ability to like prompt these things, and these things, LLM or Atlas or whatever, the output is just going to be way ahead of anybody else.
Yeah, I think also what you're going to find is people that don't have the experience are probably going to get there quicker. And I'll tie it in with like an example where I'll find oftentimes if I'm using a chatbot, or let's say, I don't know if this happened in real life, but let's just say that maybe a leak happened in my ceiling due to someone swapping out a plumbing fixture, and let's just say that I had to replace the that someone had to replace the sheetrock. Maybe
definitely wasn't you that did that.
Yeah, so like I was using a pipe wrench on a faucet and stuff like that. But anyway, I asked questions and I was giving it too much context, basically leading the witness to where if I would have just said, here's the picture, here's what I got, what's next, I would have been able to follow a better sequence. And instead, I was kind of driving, because I didn't want to sound incompetent, so I was driving the AI in a certain direction because I was saying, I think it's this. Okay, well, why would I say that? I'm trusting Gemini or GPT. Okay. So that was kind of a unique scenario, but yeah, go ahead.
I just had an epiphany, right? So is this where your whole be a toilet spiel came from?
No, okay. It is connected.
All right, we're going to save that part till the end, because the be a toilet thing, it's poetic, it's like not philosophical, but it's like there's deep meaning to this.
There is.
Wow, it's so simple. So be a toilet might not be what you think it is.
Yeah.
Toilet can be a lot of things.
Yeah.
So we will get to that later. Yeah. Cool. I think the Thorn from Pantheon, and I love the people involved, at Pantheon, and I think they do a great job. I think some of the, at least the panels I went to fell a little bit short. Some of them were more like fireside chat stuff as opposed to, potential like tangible things that, a contractor or a marketer or somebody could take away from, the event. I know other people found value in certain areas, and don't get me wrong, I went to a couple of panels that were really, really good, that provided some great information, but some of the other ones just felt like it was more like a platform of conversation as opposed to, having actionable insights. And I see the value there, but I don't know, I think this year felt a little different in that sense. So,
interesting.
But overall, solid event. In terms of aha moments, I just, I don't know, I think, and I've been talking about it for a long time, it's just this whole LLM and, how can our clients leverage large language models more? and really like use their data in ways that they've never been able before, because we have large language models to like help us compute it, and it's conversational and all that. So I just think the aha moment was just saying how AI is going to really impact the trades, because we're marketing and we see how it's impacting marketing. But now and I think last year we saw it too with all the rollout of new AI dispatchers and AI CSRs, and the whole stuff with Rilla and how they use AI to grade all that stuff. So I just think as lame as it sounds, I think just how AI is going to impact the trades overall.
Yeah, I think it's important to isolate specific tactics where AI is actually providing value. And I was listening to a really good conversation about the impact just of our energy drive. How much can we sustain with all these massive computing models to make a funny video on Sora of a cat like standing upside down? Like, what's the real environmental or financial impact? And then how does it actually help us? And then if you take that into the business, even here I've seen my time use AI for stuff that, dude, I could have done this a lot quicker, but it was cool to try it with AI. But then there's a lot of automation where I think we actually see, like when you go into booking and you go into route planning, like AI can definitely make a huge improvement there. But as we've seen, and we've talked about it a lot, a CSR AI bot, removing that emotional connection from the first step, well, what's the drawback on customer sentiment in their experience with your brand? And so I think, and I know a lot of people have been just shoving AI onto every process and onto every aspect of their business. How can we do this better with AI? I think it's important to take a step back and see what should we be doing with AI? Because if we're focusing on trying to improve everything in the trades via AI, it may not really be the big lift that we're looking for.
Yeah, I think the other super important thing is, that I don't think they touched on much about Atlas. They sold you the dream and how incredible it'll be, but it's only going to be as good as the data that it has to operate off. So you're an organization where you're, halfway filling out, information in your CRM, whether it's the history of the client or, invoices or not keeping up with your inventory or price book, all that stuff is going to impact the output. And that's why data, hygiene is going to be so important, and having a set of standards there. And I think as we build out our AI tools and harnessing all of our data, I think we're learning more and more how important it is. So but I think overall Pantheon, I give it a 7.9 out of 10. 8.3.
Yeah, I think from my perspective, even though I didn't go, I was at a business retreat for EO. My rose, my thorn clearly was that I wasn't able to go and got double booked, but my rose is that I had confidence in the 8 people that we sent, and then you as a leader making sure that everybody got to where they needed to be on time. Everybody was, for the most part, not losing their phones multiple times. But just knowing that I fully had trust in the team that we sent there, and in the past probably I'm a worrier, would have been worried about what's going on. It wasn't even a thought going into it, so that's a positive for me for sure.
Heck yeah, well I appreciate you saying that. Yeah, we I would say we developed some new sales techniques while we were there. So shout out Austin Hill for your tenacious pursuit, results driven, all the above there. So good times.
Yeah.
Good times. Yeah. Cool. Let's talk about this Google Search Console shakeup. You lead us into this one, because honestly, I don't know as much. I've just seen the graphs and they look scary. So what's going on here?
Yeah, so Google Search Console, basically Google does what Google does, and they made a change into that query perimeter of having 100 search results. And so if you Google something like AC repair, they removed the ability to look at 100 results on the same page. And so that did a couple of things. The one that most people were frustrated about is any scraper tool that's used to give clients rankings on their position. If you're not in the top 10, all of a sudden 11 through 100 are not being tracked as a ranking in Google Search Console or in whatever Authority Labs or whatever ranking tool you're using. So what people saw in your Google Search Console is a massive drop in impressions, but a jump in position. And so all those fringe keywords, if you're a foundation repair company and maybe you have like house leveling in 78232 as a keyword that you showed up on the 5th page for on the 50th position, that didn't even track anymore. Wow. So it looks like half of your website went away and you lost massive visibility, when in reality what it did was just say, okay, here are the keywords that you're ranking well for, and so you just lost a big impression share. Like I'm talking 66% impression share overnight. And so the big issue really is that your tracking tool may be broken. The opportunity here is focusing on the keywords that really matter and the paycheck keywords and thoughts there. It's probably, you know, I put the tinfoil hat on. Google's probably getting served a ton of irrelevant queries and just people scraping the data. So it's probably like an energy conservation tactic. But they could probably also sell the data with direct connections and APIs on rankings. But overall, like we did have a couple clients that freaked out, started changing a bunch of stuff, thinking it was something that was wrong with the site. It was not something that was wrong with the site. It was simply Google changing how GSC was pulling those analytics.
Interesting. So it's not that like people lost the impressions, or they're just not counting them anymore past the 10th position?
Yep. So they're just not being tracked. It's still there. It's just when you put into a website URL path, you can't put the ampersand in the query parameter of show me 100 listings on one page. It's kind of like if you're on any tool and it's got tab navigation and it only shows 10 results, and you can say, well, show me 50 results or show me 100 results. Right. Typically what that page does is it throws that parameter in the URL path and then it opens it up. They just remove that. And so I don't really see them having a reason to open it back up and add it back. We haven't seen any news from them about them doing it yet. It's just adjusting. But yeah.
Interesting. So you think this was driven by like the AI scrapers and things like that, or?
I think that, plus I think what they're probably going to do is show fewer pages in the long run and just position the AI to either force you to ask a better question or have kind of like a single page result. Like realistically, very few people go past the second page. It's only if you're trying to scrape data or do like citation cleanup or something along those lines. I'm sure there are a ton of other reasons, but the mass quantity, you don't go past the second page. And so I think they're just trying to simplify that user interface.
Okay, interesting. What do you think, like, what are like the next steps? Like how can, contractors or other marketers, like what should we action on this stuff? Should we just wait and see, or?
Yeah, I mean, well, just understanding the value of clicks and conversions rather than just impressions. And so I think, we've talked about it a lot here internally of when you're looking at Google Search Console and then you're monitoring impressions there, you really want to filter out anything that's lower than a 30 result from a position standpoint, because how far are you away from actually bringing new traffic in? And I think also what it'll do is focus in on like your local geo and make a lot of agencies be more honest with the traffic, because like blog writing is great to give more content for Google, but what we know as marketers is a lot of that blog organic traffic coming in from Google Search Console is from either data centers and bots crawling it, or people outside of your geo that you're never going to serve anyway. And so it's just bloated statistics that may be used to tell a client, look at how great you're doing, when really we should be focusing in on page views and conversions.
Interesting. So you think it's not that much of a bad thing? You think it's going to be positive in the end?
I do. Okay. Unfortunately, I do think it's positive. And I say unfortunately because I hate change a lot of times, and I think the over-reliance on the AI to be able to deliver the right result is going to be a potential concern. But if you can remove pages 3 through 10 through 20 or whatever in the Google interface, I think that's probably a good move.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, I'm torn because also, it seems like, I'm hearing all this stuff about like searches are going back to like long tail because of like how we are, how AI or LLMs have influenced it. I also read that statistic that 60% of AI reviews are coming from page 4 of Google.
Mm-hmm.
And so I don't know. Like, I don't know how to feel about it all because it seems like we were going back to like what it kind of was before with the whole idea of long tail and that sort of stuff, and then so yeah, interesting to see what's going to continue to occur, like what Google is going to change because of the AI reviews.
Yeah, I think like Connecticut, San Antonio is a client that we've had for a long time. They just came back actually. Like one of their top performing blog posts is like, what's the impact of hard water on my hair or something like that, right? And we've always been 1 or 2 for a bunch of queries there, and a lot of bad content is written by blogs to rank exactly for that Q&A.
Right.
And so now, if you're building more of a long-form blog article, that could be a question that's answered in the middle of your paragraph instead of your page title, your meta, your H1, your H2, all trying to rank for the same keyword. Yeah. It's moving people more towards topical conversations and hopefully less spammy content. But again, we're trusting the AI to index it and then deliver what the AI believes is your best answer.
Yeah, I'm fascinated at how content's going to change and where we create content and all that, because I don't think I know there's more studies out there, but we're still not certain on how LLMs are getting their information and where they'll continue to get it, and what does that shakeup look like when they do the LLM core updates. Would be interesting to see, but cool. Well, that's kind of scary, but at the same time, I mean, if it's going to give us better analytics and statistics, then maybe it will be a good thing in the end.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Here's a hot topic. I know we've been struggling with this lately. Just it seems like the last 6 months it's gotten worse and worse, and now I think we got validation because we saw other kind of thought leaders in the space kind of call this out, but Google business profile suspensions, right? And so we, I think through the past 6 months have learned a few things. One of them, is around kind of the top 5 citation sites. So, I guess first, what do you think's been causing the GBP suspensions? I have a tin hat theory myself.
Yeah, I've been perusing some Reddit threads as I'm creating more of a branded Reddit profile and trying to get active in there. Don't want to blame the user, don't want to blame the business owner or even the agency, but most of the times when you ask clarifying questions, there's 1 or 2 things that the business owner or whoever's managing the profile has done. And it's, too many changes on the profile, or what we typically see is changing your Google listing first and then everything else second. And Google just automatically, you have to update your third-party citations or your non-Google citations first. Google should be last. And I think tinfoil hat, there are a lot of theories going on, but I think like the consolidation or moving more towards GLS and GBP, trying to become one property is probably a part of it. But in reality, I think there are more people making marketing decisions in businesses. There's less patience for doing it the right way. And there's more friction in these decisions. And so, I mean, we've had more clients either try to do the marketing themselves or bring in a marketing assistant. That happens. I mean, there's even stuff where here internally, like I'll make a change on a GBP without letting the SEO team know. That's potentially a friction moment where Google sees too much movement on a GBP. And so I think it's probably a flood of information, probably too much access for too many people, and then just we want everything now, which leads us to not follow the process. But I'm curious what your tinfoil hat.
Yeah, I'm thinking it's like it's so AI driven and automated driven now that they're just relying on algorithms or artificial systems to grade this stuff, for lack of better terms, right? And so like the whole idea to me of like touching a profile too much will get it suspended. It's just it's just crazy to like think about, right? Because that they want you to like optimize the profile, and like we've always thought that sends good signals back when you're being active, whether it's a Google post or ensuring like you have good updated information regarding your business. So that and coupled with the fact of us trying to get new GBPs verified, and then just it's like another hurdle to jump and another hurdle to jump. It's just crazy to think about. So I think it's more driven because there's not really like humans looking at it anymore, and it leads me to believe it's like who was even looking at it before, what was the level. But what's more frustrating is like Google doesn't really tell you specific, like here's the playbook around like not getting suspended, right? Or here's the playbook, like the definitive way to like make sure your Google profile is verified. I mean, we had a garage door company, they've been in business forever. He's got tons and tons of reviews. I think 4,000 reviews on his original GBP. He opens up a whole new showroom, so an actual showroom where people can go and visit. It's not just like an office. And man, was that like a challenge to get that verified. The stuff they made us go through is just wild. So I think it's frustrating more than anything. But yeah, and so some of the things we learned is top 5 citation sites, and I think this kind of goes in that AI thing. It's like Google's going to seek the information somewhere else for like validation on their own thing before it's like approved,
Yeah.
And I'd love to like run a test, like create just a fake business, create 5 of these fake citations, and then see like what happens.
Yeah,
it'd be interesting. But yeah, so the big 5 are what? Yelp / MapQuest, Better Business Bureau, Bing, Apple, Facebook, and then eventually kind of do Google last.
Yeah, that's typically what we say. I mean, you want to make sure that you've got your citations built out, and I really don't count Yext as having the citations built out. I would really like to see like personal ownership of these top listings that are data aggregators, and we put Yelp and MapQuest together because MapQuest pulls in the Yelp data. Bing Places has had a resurgence, so making sure that Bing your listing is good there. And then the BBB is kind of a hot topic because I know there are some industries that really don't love BBB, but if you search your business name, and we talk about roll call a lot, like if your competitors are there, you should probably be there, not only because of customer sentiment, but really now for AI sentiment. And so if AI models are scanning the web and they see your competitor in 4 places that you aren't, you probably want to try to be there as well and in more spots. And so that's where I'm thinking like BBB is it has an accreditation process. It has the ability, or gives you the ability to respond to reviews in a healthy way. It's gonna be there. So I definitely recommend that being one of the top 5.
Yeah, and shout out to our team for their resilience. Also, Katie, our SEO director, she went to Brighton. She, was there for a couple of days. She moderated some panels, did a lot of networking, got to meet some people, and met some folks that are helping us through like some of these challenges. And because we've had a couple clients where it's been difficult, and we have a client that we just got who apparently had a rogue employee who did something potentially nefarious with their GBP to where it kind of disappeared, allegedly.
Allegedly. Thank you.
So we are working on recovering that, which has been a whole thing in itself. So all that to say, if you need help with your GBP, reach out. We might be able to help you. So cool. All right. So new segment, client question of the week. We'll work on this, and we'll workshop it. But Bianca, maybe we can put up like a graphic or something.
Like the more you know, but client question.
Oh yes. Let's rip that off, please. get Nano Banana to do it. Okay, so the big question we've been hearing, this week, and I think even for a while sometimes, is how do I show up in LLM search results? How does one show up, Aaron?
Yeah, I mean, we talk a lot about just content breadth, making sure that you've got content on different platforms. It's not just your website. Owning your space. So if you have the ability to create your social profiles, go ahead and do it. But also your posting frequency, making sure that you have indexable text on it. So like on a YouTube short, one of the easiest content creation strategies that I could think of is have someone from your staff stand in front of a camera and read reviews from Google, and then put the review in the YouTube short description, and then tag it properly with your location. Like, that's something that you could do across TikTok, across YouTube Shorts, across Instagram. That's indexable content that the LLMs are looking for, right?
Yeah.
And so that's something that's like 101. Shorts, those descriptions or whatever captions are going to be indexed. Having a mission, cause, or statement, like how do you help the community? So finding ways to get active with your local chambers. Like, these are old school SEO tactics of like getting a link from a nonprofit and things like that, but actually doing work and actually having an event or hosting an event. What these LLM models are looking for is reputable data sources that they can now use to give feedback in, right?
Yep.
And Google was so one-way skewed based on domain authority that it still is something they're looking at, but LLMs can change on a dime. And so another thing we know that LLMs are looking at is like traditional news. They still value Fox, NBC, some of these other. So if you're doing advertising on your local affiliates, try to do a marketing campaign that's like, hey, let's do a box fan giveaway because it's getting hot, or let's help people with hunger in the food bank, and then asking for a link or some kind of write-up on their channels. And now this goes further than just their website, right? Because their social media profiles from these news stations are also seen with credibility. And so it's just that digital PR concept of, we used to just talk about getting it for a backlink.
Yeah.
Now you're getting it for LLM indexability as well.
Yeah. Yeah. What I've, heard and just read is, there's multiple kind of third-party sources that are, influencing it. So we've talked about Wikipedia, it's like, okay, a lot of stuff's coming from Wikipedia. Reddit, right, which is another one. Quora, as well. Then, we're hearing deeper pages of, the search results, right? And so some of these blogs that, didn't get as much traffic, in the past are now seeing like another life because, long tail, type of queries. So from my perspective, that's what I'm hearing, a lot. And so, does that mean you need to go set up a Wikipedia page, and, do you need to start a Reddit profile so you can start building karma, and like, should you, hire somebody to be active on Quora, and, and then how do you do all that without feeling like spammy, which I think we're already seeing people trying to figure out how to quote unquote do black hat tactics to try to game the system. Like I asked earlier today, I was like, would it be a terrible thing if we just went out and bought somebody's profile who's got like a ton of karma, and we just start posting from there? That way we don't need to spend however long to try to build up karma on a profile.
Yeah.
So that is, what I think I've been hearing the most in terms of how LLMs are influenced.
I mean, there's a whole business model for that, and they're selling the profiles on like a Fiverr and stuff.
Yeah.
And like I called one out to the team in Slack today because I was responding to a Service Titan thing, and I saw this guy like posted a Jobber versus Housecall Pro, question.
Yeah.
The question like had a link in it to their blog, and then you go through this user's history, and it's like very methodical. For every 2 that they were posting links on, the next one was like dating advice, or am I the a-hole? What kind of like feedback? So they're spreading it to where it's not completely obvious, but at some point like Reddit's gonna have to take a look at that because it is being abused.
Yeah. I mean, is it abuse if you're doing it like for the greater good and you actually are providing value? You know, it's like, you know, for people who blog, you know, too much and wrote about everything under the sun, was that spammy? Or, you know, if, for the ones that were doing it well and providing value, is it okay? Is it acceptable?
Yeah, no, I think that's I think it's an interesting question. I think it's what's the use of the subreddit? What's the intent there? Because when you think about subreddit, it's not really communities. It's like or not categories. It's more of a community.
Right.
And so if you're okay with that stuff happening, then sure, maybe it does work. But it's just a different variation of PR.
Yeah, and great segue into just digital PR and kind of what we touched on first in terms of traditional news sites and, you know, figuring out how to manufacture, you know, digital PR type campaigns through a box fan giveaway, or, you know, fixing somebody's potential plumbing or foundation, or kind of like those giving back type moments, because there's so much opportunity to gain media exposure there. And, you know, I was just thinking in my mind, you know, is that the big differentiator from, you know, what search once was versus what AI overall is now, is like the recency of it, right? Like, how much does recency play a part in that? Because I think I shared a video with you of a guy, you know, using what's that site where you can like just release press releases,
like PR Newswire.
Yeah, PR
like
Newswire. Like, this guy's gaming PR Newswire to show up in LLMs like overnight. You know, by just putting out, I don't know if they were bogus PR, you know, press releases, but nonetheless, he was putting out, you know, these press releases to give visibility, because again, LLMs are going to these sites that, you know, may or may not have authority, but they have information, you know, that's recent.
Yeah, PR Newswire back in the day, and there was a Russian one as well, that like prlog.ru was another one that I remember, like pre-Penguin penalty days. You could just put out a newswire and it would get picked up by a bunch of like local affiliates. And you might have a San Antonio, Texas news thing, it gets picked up in like Salt Lake City, just because their algorithm or the way they were accepting content pulled it in. And for a very short period, that stuff really gained the domain authority and got visibility. But you're right, like now, what's the safety net from LLMs? If they're just taking the indexability of all the content out there on the web, how do they filter through what's real, what's not? And so I can see how that's a tactic that will work for now. But what I think it really points back to is you can have short wins, but what's the long haul? What's the big picture? And so if you're chasing short wins all the time, you're going to be investing in a lot of tactics that may not work tomorrow.
Yeah, and that's like, I think that's the question, like, that we need to try to like answer, is like, what's going to work long term, right? Because I think if we look back to like when we were all fighting to like rank on page one of Google, like there were certain things you could do for a certain amount of time that like worked, and then Google would come in and like introduce a core update or something that would just kill that stuff, right? Or they would say, hey, like no longer, you know, does this, you know, matter, whether it's like page titles or, you know, whatever it may be, the meta description, or I'm not an SEO, but you know what I'm saying, like things of that nature. And since the LLMs are like such the wild, wild west right now, like, do we even know? And should we just chase the short term until this thing like flushes out and we understand what is like long-term opportunity?
Yeah, and I think the new platform in 2026 of GPT ads, and whenever that gets rolled out, it's like, okay, well, was that the GLS of Google Ads? And you know, we're working really hard on Google Ads, and then GLS comes out, and for some of the industries, your ROAS on GLS is a lot higher than Google Ads. Oddly enough, we were looking at a client the other day, and their Google Ads ROAS was 4.7, and the GLS was like a 3.2 or something. And that's the first time I'd really seen it flipped. That was in the foundation repair space. But all that said, you're right in the sense of we need to try the short wins just in case they work in the long run. But banking everything on one tactic, like
Yeah.
GLS, is a huge risk right now because we've got clients that they can't spend enough on GLS
Right.
because it's just the budget's wide open. We've got others that can't spend on GLS. It just happens. But like, if that's your one method and you're living off of that, you need to be diversifying.
Yeah, I think diversifying, but also making sure you're like approaching these new tactics with like care, and because if they do turn into like a long term like win, and this is like what will ultimately influence, and I think we've reaped the benefits of that, through just writing really good content that was not for the short term but long term, and so that's important. Um, a question popped into my head, and just I want to ask you, but also I think it would be great for people to like add it into the comments. So, what do you think people trust more? Do you think people trust like Google and their kind of their search results more, or are they trusting like ChatGPT and Perplexity and the LLMs of the world? And I'm not saying Google AI overviews. I guess that will be coupled in with like the GPTs. What do you think people are trusting more? Like just what the AI overview is telling you, or what like the search results show, and like kind of like your classic page one of Google?
Yeah, I would lean towards people are trusting for content and expertise the LLM models. I think there's still a consumer behavior as far as trusting who to buy from is still on Google. And the Q&A happens, the back and forth happens in the LLMs. You can ask clarifying questions and make it a little bit easier there. But I think from a buying behavior, it still is, for the most part, in Google.
Yeah, because I go back and forth. Like, I will search the LLM and say, hey, like, what's the best blank company around me, right? Or what's the best Japanese restaurant? And it's going to give me, a certain list of like search results that sometimes are good and sometimes are just like mediocre. You're like, like they gave me like a place that's like 2.3 stars, on Yelp or whatever. And then I'll do the same search on Google and kind of do like the, old school, I guess, way of searching, and go find like an article that actually, is like local to the market and says like, hey, these are the best restaurants. And then I'll read that, and it'll have a whole different set of answers. And typically they're better answers, in my opinion. But, and so that's like, I think the gap there is like, because AI is just getting stuff, and people are just very quick to like trust it. It's like, oh, well, ChatGPT told me this, so like it's gotta be right. So that's what scares me. But, somebody comment, what do you trust more, the LLMs or just old school Google search results where you got to click through and read stuff yourself? So,
and I will tell you, like, I there might have been an experience recently in my household where someone might have been searching up things like plumbing stuff or sheetrock with the LLM.
Wasn't
and yeah, it might have happened. And a lot of the links from Home Depot are just dead, and like that product's not available. So I think also it's when you get failure there, that's why I've been using still Google for some stuff. But,
yeah, and I guess that's counter to what I said earlier about the recency stuff. Now that I'm thinking about it, which is interesting because, like, well, yeah, it's really good at recency, but it's also really good at grabbing like old links that either don't work anymore or maybe don't matter, or, and so that's, but again, it's so convincing when it's like telling you this, or feeding you this data. So,
or it's a product like the way the Home Depot's website structured, you go off your IP address and then your zip code, and then it might have been pulling answers from outside of my zip or outside my area. And then when I get to my local store, okay, that's not available at this location.
Right. Okay.
I mean, somebody, if that happened in someone's home.
Got you. So, to summarize, how do you show up in LLMs? You definitely want a breadth of content, and that's content you produce, content produced by reputable, news sites. Citation consistency, I think, is still big. Reviews, because reviews are coming from everywhere now. Google, LLMs are pulling from Yelp, and all these other places. So that's always going to be important. The local nonprofit and event-based community work, probably important too, just from, I think, a corporate citizen standpoint. the digital PR aspect, the opportunity to be mentioned on those types of sites are big as well. And then you gave that little nugget about reading your reviews and YouTube Shorts, which I think is interesting. How AI can influence that. And I don't know, did you see the news about like the first AI actor ever created?
And director,
And people are like livid about it, right? And so imagine these AI actors just, you got Bob the Builder here. Wait, that's probably trademarked.
Allegedly.
Allegedly. Bob, the hardworking guy, reading like your reviews. You know what I mean? Or you just have this like super hunk, just like for all the that demographic out there. But I think it would be interesting to test that and just have But then again, like what happens to authenticity at that point? Because the reviews are so authentic, but then they're being read by somebody that's fake.
I mean, that's something that I think is absolutely true. And when we talk about, like, let's be platform agnostic here, and we've talked about the EAT model and how the authorship matters. And so if you can tie your brand to an individual that is in your business, that is not going to have some issues with a DUI or whatever, and like there's somebody, the owner, it doesn't matter what channel they're on, but tie them to the brand from trust metrics. And so if you're doing the doom scroll, you can have an AI person, but the authenticity of it's very quick, just with that dopamine hit to keep going. But that split second, if you see someone that's connected to your brand with your polo that's going to be on multiple channels, it's still an impression. They might not have watched the whole thing, but they know who you are and what you're talking about. Like, you can think of the people when you're doom scrolling, if you doom scroll, we don't, but you could think of the people that you see their face, what type of content you're about to see, kind of the format, and it was an impression that stuck in your mind temporarily.
Yeah, and then you eventually become a follower, and you remember the brand, they keep becoming top of mind, and so cool. Mm-hmm. All right, the long-awaited Be a Toilet. Tell us what it takes to be a toilet.
It doesn't take much. Actually, it takes a lot of work. I got to remember where I even was, but there was a conversation that was had, and it was talking about be a toilet. There's only a couple parts in the toilet. There's no electrical. The components is just water pressure going and then filling back up. It's a simple device in your home that is so impactful. And as we talk about marketing, as we talk about AI is now rolled into every single aspect of your life. It's easy to make things more complex. And so in our State of the Company address this week, I mentioned and I told everybody here to be a toilet, and the facial expressions were, let's just say, a little shocked, and they didn't know what I meant. And we're moving our whole project management system out of what we've been using for probably 8 years now into ClickUp, which is something we've kind of fought for a while, but just simplifying our tech stack, but also then using it as an opportunity with our processes to make sure we can simplify it. Because as you grow from 8 to 30 people, you add in tasks to overcome. Gerald or Jerry from 2018 did this one thing wrong one time. Okay, well, let's build a step in the process to overcome that. Yeah. So anyway, the Be a Toilet concept is, how can we do this the most simplest way possible?
Well, I have to break it to you, dude. I just bought an AI toilet.
Did you really?
Yeah, it's got a lot of features.
Oh yeah,
a lot of things. So no, that's
a heater.
So I would say the equivalent of the AI toilet is, I think it's a Japanese brand called Toto. Have you ever heard of these toilets? Apparently they're like the Cadillac of toilets. They have like built-in bidets and like all sorts of stuff. And so, I think if anybody needs a new toilet, check out Toto. This episode is sponsored by a toilet brand.
My wife's cousin is in Band of Heathens. They toured with Kid Rock on a cruise ship, and he bought them all gold toilet that like has kind of, it might be a Toto, I don't know. Okay. But yeah, it's got all the built-in stuff, but that was years ago. So they're probably Gucci now.
It is, yeah, for sure. So All right. Well, if you guys take one thing away from this episode, it's be a toilet.
Be a toilet.
But before we go, we're going to do our man on the street.
Oh, yeah.
With our guy, Ryan. So you guys hang tight, and we're going to fast forward through this part, and then we're going to go get Ryan.
Battery critical. It's going to stop in 5 minutes due to critical battery. Let's go.
First ever Man on the Street new segment alert. We've got 2 new segments in one episode. As new segment alert, Man on the Street, first guest ever, Ryan Schilling. Ryan, we have a big question for you, buddy. So our buddy here is about to have a beautiful baby daughter. So let us know what are top tips of being a girl dad.
I don't know yet. Do the opposite. Don't give her monster trucks because my 3-year-old just likes monster trucks. So I guess that.
Okay.
And then I hear that you need to learn how to braid hair. So I'll figure that out.
A lot of YouTube.
Yeah, I guess so. But yeah, so that'll be pretty cool. Love this.
Awesome. Well, there you guys have it. First ever Man on the Street. Talk of the trades.
Nailed it.
Yeah.
1% battery left.
Beautiful.